I smoothed my hands over the silky fabric of my wedding dress, a soft smile playing on my lips as I admired the intricate lace detailing. This was the moment I had dreamed of, marrying into wealth and status, leaving my humble roots behind. But little did I know, the path ahead was paved with humiliation and heartbreak. The lavish engagement party was in full swing, champagne flowing freely as Jake's privileged friends and family mingled. I felt out of place amidst the opulence, my modest upbringing a stark contrast to their world of inherited affluence. Still, I plastered on a smile, determined to win their acceptance. That's when Richard, Jake's imposing father, stepped forward, his expression one of thinly veiled disdain. "Welcome to the family, for now," he announced with a cruel smirk. "Let's see if this charity case can meet our standards." The room fell silent, all eyes on me as my face burned with shame. Jake shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing to defend me against his father's classist jabs. In that moment, I realized the true depths of Richard's contempt for my background. As the party resumed, I found myself reminiscing about how Jake and I first met. He had been so charming, showering me with affection and promises of a better life. But over time, his true colors emerged: the controlling behavior, the belittling comments about my modest means. I had chosen to ignore the red flags, blinded by my desperation to escape poverty. Later that night, Jake tried to apologize for his father's behavior, but the damage was done. The man I had fallen for was gone, replaced by someone who enabled his family's cruelty towards me. A gnawing sense of dread settled in my gut. If this was just the engagement party, what horrors awaited at the wedding itself? Growing up, I never imagined I'd be planning a lavish wedding fit for royalty. My childhood home was a cramped apartment where every penny counted. Mom worked double shifts as a waitress, while Dad juggled odd jobs to keep us afloat. Yet they instilled in me the belief that hard work and determination could unlock a better future. That future seemed tantalizingly close when I met Jake at the local community college. With his expensive sports car and designer clothes, he reeked of money and privilege. But he charmed me with his easy smile and stories of traveling the world. I was smitten, envisioning myself escaping the cycle of poverty. Jake's father, Richard, was far less enamored when we brought up marriage. "You can't be serious," he scoffed during a disastrous family dinner. "Marrying some bargain basement girl from the wrong side of the tracks?" Jake shifted uncomfortably, his eyes downcast. "Dad, don't be like that. Ava's amazing." "Amazing at digging her claws into you for your money, you mean?" Richard sneered at me. "I forbid this circus act of a wedding from happening under my roof." Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to show weakness. "With all due respect, it's not your decision. We're both adults capable of making our own choices." "Then you can pay for this sham of a wedding yourself," Richard retorted. "Don't expect a dime from me for some deadbeat's daughter." The venom in his voice shook me to my core. This was the man I hoped to call family, a cold-hearted elitist who viewed me as subhuman filth. Over the following weeks, Richard's disdain only grew more overt. He nitpicked every minor wedding detail, from the venue to the flower arrangements. "This is a disgrace to our family name," he'd mutter under his breath whenever I was within earshot. I confided in Jake, hoping he'd have my back against his father's relentless torment. But he just shrugged it off. "You know how he gets. Don't take it personally." That's when the first seeds of doubt took root. Was tying myself to this entitled family worth enduring their abuse? I pushed those doubts aside, convincing myself I could tough it out as long as I had Jake by my side. Little did I know, the worst was yet to come, a reckoning that would push me to the brink and set the stage for an unthinkable act of revenge. The days leading up to the wedding were a blur of last-minute preparations and mounting dread. Richard's contempt only seemed to intensify, his snide remarks cutting deeper each time. I found myself dreading our interactions, bracing for the next insult about my pedestrian tastes or lowbrow background. It all came to a head during the final dress fitting. As I admired the intricate beadwork on my gown, Richard barged into the boutique, his face thunderous. "You conniving little grifter," he spat, thrusting a crumpled document in my face. "Did you think you could keep this buried forever?" My heart pounded as I scanned the pages, a decades-old arrest record detailing a misdemeanor charge from my turbulent teenage years. An act of desperation to keep a roof over my family's head, but one that could shatter my dreams if exposed. "So this is the caliber of woman you're shackling yourself to?" Richard turned to Jake, who had trailed in behind him. "A criminal from the dregs of society?" Jake's expression was inscrutable. "Ava, what is all this about?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. How could I explain the complexities of poverty and sacrifice to those who never had to struggle? Richard seized the opportunity, his voice dripping with venom. "Mark my words, this sordid affair ends now. Unless—" He leaned in close, his hot breath on my face. "You sign an airtight prenup, one that protects every last penny of my fortune when this inevitable dumpster fire inevitably implodes." Bile rose in my throat as the gravity of his words hit me. He was willing to publicly humiliate me, to trample on my fragile dreams, all to maintain his twisted sense of superiority. "And if I refuse," I managed to choke out, "then this lovely paper trail will be the first thing your precious husband sees on your wedding day." Richard's smile was chilling, along with copies for all our esteemed guests to admire. In that moment, something inside me snapped. The months of denigration, the constant belittling, the unbridled cruelty, it all came rushing forth in a tidal wave of rage. Before I could stop myself, my hand lashed out, slapping Richard squarely across his smug face. "You evil, miserable bastard!" Jake rushed forward, grabbing my arms as Richard cupped his stinging cheek, his eyes widening in shock. "You'll regret this, you insolent wench." As security ushered us out, I caught a glimpse of my distorted reflection in the boutique window. The woman staring back was a stranger, her face contorted in anguish, her body trembling with equal parts fury and despair. This was a turning point, I realized. I could either surrender to Richard's twisted demands or take a stand, no matter the cost. And as Jake led me away in stunned silence, I knew deep down that my path had been chosen. I stormed into Marcus's apartment, my chest heaving and tears streaking my cheeks. He took one look at my disheveled appearance and ushered me inside, his brow furrowed with concern. "Ava, what happened? You look like you've been through hell." The words tumbled out in a torrent as I recounted the horrific confrontation with Richard, his vile threats, his callous disregard for my dignity. By the time I finished, Marcus's hands were clenched into white-knuckled fists. "That pretentious prick has gone too far this time," he seethed. "First he treats you like garbage, and now he's trying to blackmail you into signing away your rights?" I nodded miserably, feeling the weight of Richard's ultimatum pressing down on me. "I don't know what to do, Marcus. If I refuse, he'll ruin everything. The wedding, my relationship with Jake." "Screw the wedding," Marcus exploded, startling me with the ferocity of his outburst. "And screw that entitled bastard and his snotty family." He paced back and forth, running an agitated hand through his hair. "You've bent over backwards trying to appease them, and look where it's gotten you. Disrespected and degraded at every turn." Grasping my shoulders, Marcus locked eyes with me, his gaze intense. "You're not some doormat for them to walk all over, Ava. It's time to show that pompous ass that we don't take shit from anyone, family, money, or not." A glimmer of determination flickered to life inside me, fanning the flames of the anger still simmering from my confrontation with Richard. Marcus was right. I had cowered for too long, desperately seeking their acceptance at the expense of my self-worth. "You're saying I should fight back?" I asked, my voice trembling yet resolute. "Take the battle to them for once?" Marcus's expression was grim, but unwavering. "I'm saying it's long past time we stop playing by their rules. If Richard wants a war, we'll give him one he'll never forget." His next words sent an electrifying chill down my spine. "I'll dig up every last skeleton in that bastard's closet if that's what it takes to bring him down." In that moment, the path ahead crystallized with brutal clarity. There would be no more placating, no more hollow apologies or hollow compromises. The gloves were finally coming off. Consequences be damned. As I looked at my brother, my fiercest protector and closest confidant, I saw the future unfolding. We would band together, unified in our quest to dismantle the Hollister Empire from the inside out, and Richard would soon learn that hell hath no fury like a woman repeatedly denied her rightful place. The days ticked by in a blur as Marcus compiled his dossier on Richard Hollister, meticulously unearthing every sordid secret and unscrupulous dealing. The man's carefully curated facade was rapidly crumbling under the weight of cold, hard evidence. "This is just the tip of the iceberg," Marcus muttered grimly, shuffling through stacks of documents detailing shady business transactions, undisclosed offshore accounts, and more. "The old bastard's got more skeletons in his closet than a haunted house." I pored over the damning paper trail with a mixture of grim satisfaction and simmering rage. So this was the great Richard Hollister. Upstanding pillar of society by day, duplicitous con man by night. The revelation failed to surprise me. Wealthy elites always played by their own set of rules. As the wedding day loomed, I found myself wavering between icy resolve and overwhelming dread. Part of me longed to call the whole thing off, to wash my hands of the Hollister name forever. But the other part, the part that had seethed in silent humiliation for far too long, burned with the white-hot need to make Richard pay. Marcus must have sensed my turmoil. "Having second thoughts?" he asked one evening as we pored over the final pieces of our meticulously constructed case against Richard. I worried my lower lip, considering my response carefully. I'm not sure I can go through with it. Hurting Jake, becoming the kind of vengeful person I despise." "Hurting Jake?" Marcus arched an incredulous eyebrow. "After everything his father has put you through, he's lucky you haven't pressed charges for emotional distress and defamation of character." His words rang brutally true. For too long, I had internalized the toxic notion that I was the wrongdoer, that I somehow deserved the onslaught of cruelty for daring to rise above my station. But no more. "You're right," I said, my voice hardening with resolve. "I didn't ask for any of this. Richard brought this on himself with his arrogance and bigotry." A grim smile played across Marcus's lips. "Then let's make sure the Hollisters reap what they've sown, once and for all." The morning of the wedding arrived in a swirl of nervous energy and giddy anticipation. As I slipped into my gown, Marcus gave me one last conspiratorial nod. "It's showtime," he murmured. "You ready to burn that son of a bitch's kingdom to the ground?" I met his gaze steadily, feeling an uncharacteristic surge of power course through my veins. "More than ready," I replied, steeling myself for the biggest performance of my life. "Richard's about to learn that payback is a bitch." The lavish reception hall glistened with opulence, crystal chandeliers casting a warm glow over the impeccably dressed guests. Waiters glided by with trays of champagne flutes, the bubbles sparkling like liquid diamonds. It was a scene straight out of the lifestyles of the rich and famous, a far cry from my own humble roots. As I stood beside Jake at the altar, resplendent in my pristine white gown, I couldn't help but marvel at the extravagance surrounding us. This was the life I had coveted for so long, wealth, status, and all the trappings of the upper crust. Yet that fairy tale illusion was rapidly crumbling before my eyes. Richard caught my gaze from the front row, his expression one of poorly veiled disdain. He had begrudgingly signed off on the wedding after I agreed to his draconian prenup, but his contempt still radiated like a noxious cloud. I felt Jake tense beside me, no doubt sensing the palpable tension in the air. The ceremony droned on, the officiant's words fading into a dull murmur as my focus zeroed in on Marcus. He gave me the slightest of nods, his eyes glinting with steely determination. Our moment of reckoning was nigh. As Jake and I exchanged rings, the grand double doors at the back of the hall burst open with a resonant bang. All heads swiveled as Marcus strode down the aisle, brandishing a thick manila envelope overhead. "Sorry for the rude interruption, folks," he announced, his voice ringing with cold clarity. "But before this farce continues, I believe the guests deserve to know exactly who they're celebrating." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd as Marcus tore open the envelope, extracting the first of many damning documents. For years, Richard Hollister has portrayed himself as a pillar of moral fortitude and philanthropic generosity. Marcus's gaze locked onto the stunned patriarch. But I've uncovered a paper trail that proves his empire was built on lies, corruption, and moral bankruptcy. One by one, Marcus unveiled the sordid findings, records of insider trading, embezzlement, illicit affairs with subordinates, and more. The crowd's shock escalated into a crescendo of outrage as the enormity of the revelations sank in. Richard was on his feet now, face mottled in apoplectic rage. "You insolent worms! How dare you propagate these slanderous lies against me?" But the evidence was irrefutable, laid bare for all to see. His carefully cultivated facade was crumbling, the veil of propriety torn asunder to expose the repugnant truth lurking beneath. Jake turned to me, his expression a mask of stunned betrayal. "Ava, what have you done?" Before I could respond, a commotion erupted near the entrance as two burly security guards flanked a wild-eyed Richard. "Get your hands off me, you imbeciles," he sputtered, struggling against their iron grip. "This is an outrage, a travesty." As they hauled him away, his veneer of composure shattered completely. "You'll all pay for this humiliation. Every last one of you, treacherous snakes." His words dissolved into incoherent sputtering as the guards dragged him out, his legacy disintegrating into ashes around him. The once mighty Richard Hollister, unceremoniously dethroned by the very woman he had derided as beneath his contempt. A deafening silence descended over the hall as the gravity of the moment sank in. I turned to survey the stunned assembly, my chest swelling with a heady concoction of triumph and vindication. The debt had finally been paid in full. The aftermath of Richard's spectacular downfall was a whirlwind of chaos and recrimination. As the shocked guests dispersed, the once opulent reception hall took on the air of a dilapidated ruin, the shattered remnants of grandeur strewn about like tragic vestiges of a fallen empire. Jake rounded on me, his expression a mask of barely contained fury. "How could you do this, Ava? Destroy everything we've built together with your twisted need for vengeance?" I opened my mouth to respond, but he barreled on, his words lashing out like a whip. "My father was right about you all along. You're nothing but a scheming opportunist out for our money and status." The accusation stung, but I refused to back down. "Your father brought this on himself with his reprehensible behavior. I'm done being treated like a second-class citizen, Jake. If you can't see that, then we have nothing left to say to each other." His nostrils flared, jaw clenched in impotent rage. For a fleeting moment, I saw a glimmer of the man I'd fallen for, the charming, good-natured soul who had swept me off my feet. But it was quickly extinguished, smothered by the twisted ideology of superiority he'd inherited from his disgraced patriarch. "Then I guess this is goodbye," he spat, ripping off his tuxedo jacket and flinging it to the ground in disgust. "I hope you and your low-life brother enjoy gloating over your hollow victory. You've just flushed your last chance at a better life down the drain." With that parting salvo, he stormed off, leaving me standing amidst the wreckage of what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. A hollow ache blossomed in my chest as the finality of our shattered relationship sank in. Marcus materialized at my side, his expression a mixture of grim satisfaction and concern. "You okay, sis? That was one hell of a bombshell to drop." I let out a shuddering breath, willing my turbulent emotions into submission. "I'll be fine. Just getting some much-needed closure, I suppose." His arm draped around my shoulders, offering a reassuring squeeze. "For what it's worth, I'm proud of you for standing your ground. The Hollisters had this karmic reckoning coming for a long time." I nodded, my gaze drifting to the ornate doubled doors where Jake had stormed out mere moments ago. A part of me still clung to the naive hope that he would see reason, that the man I loved was still in there somewhere beneath the toxic conditioning. But his vehement rejection, coupled with the searing finality of his parting words, told a different story. This was the point of no return. By dismantling the Hollister Empire, I had irrevocably severed all ties to that world of privilege and status I had so desperately coveted. The dream was officially over, replaced by what? A future that was as terrifyingly uncertain as it was exhilaratingly wide open. As Marcus and I made our way out of the decimated reception hall, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of lightness amidst the emotional turbulence. The shackles of oppression, the constant need to contort myself into someone more palatable to the elite, had finally been shattered. For the first time in my life, I was beholden to no one but myself. And that realization was more intoxicating than any amount of wealth or prestige the Hollister name could offer. 6 months had passed since the cataclysmic unraveling of the Hollister dynasty, and my life had taken an unexpected but oddly fulfilling detour. Gone were the days of desperately chasing acceptance from the elite, of contorting myself into someone I wasn't just for a taste of their rarefied air. Instead, I had channeled my newfound freedom into pursuing my own entrepreneurial ambitions. With a small loan from Marcus and an ironclad determination to blaze my own trail, I had opened a quaint little cafe in the heart of the city. Nothing fancy, just good food, friendly service, and a warm, welcoming atmosphere, the antithesis of the Hollisters' cold, ostentatious trappings. As I surveyed the lunchtime rush, smiling at the cheerful chatter and aroma of freshly brewed coffee that permeated the air, I couldn't help but marvel at how far I'd come. No more walking on eggshells, no more swallowing my pride for the sake of social climbing. This was my kingdom now, built from the ground up through sheer grit and perseverance. The tinkling of the front doorbell snapped me from my reverie. I glanced up and felt my breath catch in my throat. There, shuffling in with a haunted, defeated look, was Richard Hollister, or what remained of him. His once impeccable suit hung loosely on his withered frame, his eyes sunken and rimmed with fatigue. The mighty Titan had well and truly fallen, his reputation and empire lying in smoldering ruins. For a moment our gazes locked, a silent acknowledgment passing between us. He knew I had orchestrated his downfall, just as I recognized the broken husk of a man before me as the architect of my own suffering. There was no need for words. The cosmic scales had been balanced, for better or worse. Richard slumped into a corner booth, shoulders sagging beneath an invisible weight. As I approached to take his order, a flicker of his former arrogance resurfaced. "Come to gloat, have you?" he rasped, his voice a reedy shadow of its once booming timbre. "Admire the devastation you've wrought on me and my family?" I studied him for a long moment, seeing not the sneering elitist who had derided me at every turn, but a pathetic, empty husk. Revenge, once so intoxicating in its inevitability, suddenly felt hollow and unfulfilling. "I'm not here to gloat, Richard," I said at last. "Just to take your order, if you're still welcome here." His brows knitted in confusion, as if he couldn't quite process the olive branch I was extending. For so long we had been locked in an endless cycle of escalating hostilities that the concept of civility was now utterly foreign. Finally he gave a weary nod. Just a black coffee, then." As I turned to leave, his gravelly voice stopped me. "You've won, you know. Taken everything from me, my business, my reputation, my family." A rueful chuckle escaped his cracked lips. "I don't even know who I am anymore without all of that." I looked back at him, feeling an unexpected pang of sadness amidst the hard-won sense of victory. Here was a man who had tied his entire identity to his material trappings, never realizing how empty and meaningless it all was until everything had been stripped away. "Maybe that's not such a bad thing," I heard myself saying. "A chance to start over, to find value in something other than old money and status." Richard's gaze was inscrutable as I walked away, leaving him to ponder my words and the hollow remnants of the life he had once clung to so desperately. As for me, I had found my rebirth, a new existence forged from the ashes of the old. And while the journey had been devastating, the freedom and self-determination I now possessed made every hardship worthwhile. The debt was paid, the scales finally balanced. Now it was time to flourish on my own terms. "You think you can buy love, Vivian? All you know is how to write checks." Ember's words cut deep as she smirks at me, her hand possessively clutching my husband Ashton's arm. Ashton deserves a woman who appreciates his talent, not some workaholic hag. I stare at my husband in disbelief. Surely he'll defend me, tell Ember she's out of line. But instead he pulls her closer, his eyes cold as they meet mine. "I want a divorce, Vivian, and I'm keeping the restaurant. It's the least you owe me for wasting my youth." His words slice through me like a knife. This can't be happening. I think back to when we first met. Me, a rising corporate lawyer, him, a charming bartender at the swanky lounge I frequented after long days at the firm. He had dreams of becoming a chef, and I believed in him. I paid for his culinary school, poured my savings into launching his restaurant. And this is how he repays me? Ember's victorious grin ignites a fury within me. They want to play dirty? Fine. Game on. They have no idea who they're messing with. I'm Vivian Sinclair, and I never lose. 5 years ago, things were so different. Ashton and I were deeply in love, or so I thought. We'd spend hours talking about his dreams of opening a world-class restaurant. "You make the money, I'll make the magic," he'd say with a wink. And like a fool, I believed him. I worked tirelessly, climbing the corporate ladder to afford the life we dreamed of together. The long hours paid off when I made junior partner. To celebrate, I surprised Ashton with a check, enough to cover his culinary school tuition and then some. He swept me into his arms, peppering my face with kisses. "You're my angel investor," he murmured. "I'll make you so proud." And he did, graduating top of his class. Buoyed by his success, I took out a business loan and signed a lease on a prime location downtown. Ashton's Bistro was born, and my husband was the toast of the town. Critics raved, reservations were booked months in advance. I beamed with pride at every accolade. But somewhere along the way, things changed. Late nights at the firm meant missed dinners, forgotten anniversaries. "You're never here, Vivian," Ashton would complain. "I feel like I'm married to your job." So I scaled back at work, started taking cooking classes at the restaurant to spend more time with him. That's where I met Ember, a lively young food blogger with a magnetic personality. She was everything I wasn't: carefree, fun, passionate about food. We bonded over Ashton's culinary genius, and I was grateful to have a new friend. How naive I was. The signs were all there, I just didn't want to see them. The hushed phone calls, the late nights at the restaurant. "Oh, Vivian, you're just being paranoid," Ashton would assure me. Ember is a business contact, nothing more. Nothing more, indeed. The image of them tangled in our bed, clothes strewn across the floor, is seared into my brain. And now they have the audacity to ambush me in my own home, demanding I hand over everything I've worked for. They think they've won, but the game is just beginning. I'll show them what happens when you cross Vivian Sinclair. My dear husband and his mistress picked the wrong woman to mess with. They'll rue the day they betrayed me. I straighten my spine, a cold smile spreading across my lips as I stare them down. "Enjoy your little victory," I say, my voice dripping with venom. "It won't last long. I'll destroy you both, even if it's the last thing I do." The betrayal stings like a fresh wound as I throw myself into work, desperate to ignore the growing distance between Ashton and me. Late nights at the office become my refuge, a place to bury the pain and pretend everything's fine. But deep down, I know it's not. Ember's constant presence at the restaurant doesn't help. She's always there, flitting around Ashton, laughing at his jokes, touching his arm. It makes me sick to see how close they've become. One evening, I decide to surprise Ashton with a romantic dinner at home. I slave over a gourmet meal, light candles, put on a slinky dress, but when he walks in, he barely notices. "What's all this?" he asks, his tone more annoyed than appreciative. "I thought we could have a nice night in," I say, forcing a smile. "Just the two of us," he shrugs. "I'm beat, Viv. It's been a long day at the restaurant. Ember and I were experimenting with some new recipes and lost track of time." There it is again. Ember. Always Ember. I bite back a retort and try to salvage the evening. "Well, I made your favorite, truffle risotto with seared scallops. Come, sit down and relax." But the meal is tense, the conversation stilted. Ashton picks at his food, his mind clearly elsewhere. I want to scream, to demand he pay attention to me, but I don't. I just sip my wine and pretend everything's perfect. Later, as I'm clearing the dishes, I overhear Ashton on the phone in the next room. "I can't do this anymore," he's saying, his voice low. "I feel trapped, unappreciated. She doesn't understand me like you do." My heart clenches. He's talking to her. I know it. Part of me wants to confront him, but I'm afraid of what he'll say, afraid of losing him. Instead, I bury myself in work, taking on more cases, logging longer hours. My best friend Nadia grows concerned. "You need to do something, Viv," but she urges over lunch one day. "Hire a private investigator. Find out the truth. You can't keep living like this." But I brush off her suggestion. "It's just a rough patch," I insist. "Every marriage has them. We'll get through it." Even as I say the words, I know I'm lying to myself. The cracks are widening, the foundation crumbling. And then one night, I find a text from Ember on Ashton's phone. "I can't wait to taste your new creation," it reads, followed by a winking emoji. My blood boils. I confront Ashton, waving the phone in his face. "What the hell is this?" I demand. He snatches the phone from my hand, his face twisting in anger. "It's business, Vivian. God, you're so paranoid. Ember's helping me develop new menu items. That's it." "Don't lie to me," I hiss. "I see how you two are together. The secret glances, the inside jokes. You're sleeping with her, aren't you?" Ashton scoffs. "You're delusional. Maybe if you spent more time being a wife and less time being a lawyer, you wouldn't have these crazy ideas. His words are like a slap. I recoil, tears stinging my eyes. I've given you everything, Ashton, my love, my support, my money, and this is how you repay me? He just shakes his head. I'm done with this conversation. I'm going to the restaurant to clear my head. Don't wait up. As the door slams behind him, I crumple to the floor, sobbing. How did we get here? What happened to the man I married, the love we shared? I know I can't keep living in denial. Nadia's right, I need answers. With shaking hands, I dial the number of a well-known private investigator. It's time to face the truth, no matter how painful it may be. If Ashton thinks he can betray me and walk away unscathed, he's got another thing coming. I'll find out exactly what he's been up to with Ember. And when I do, there will be hell to pay. The private investigator's report confirms my worst fears. Grainy photos of Ashton and Ember, caught in intimate embraces, secret rendezvous at her apartment. The evidence is undeniable. My husband is having an affair. I confront him that evening, slamming the photos down on the kitchen counter. Care to explain these? I ask, my voice trembling with rage. Ashton barely glances at the pictures. Where did you get those? Have you been spying on me? Don't try to turn this around on me, I snap. You're the one screwing your little food blogger behind my back. He has the audacity to roll his eyes. It's not what you think, Vivian. Ember and I, we have a connection. She understands my passion for food, my dreams. She supports me in ways you never have. Supports you? I laugh bitterly. I'm the one who paid for your culinary school, bankrolled your precious restaurant. I've supported you every step of the way. With money, sure, but emotionally? You're never there, Viv. Always working, always too busy for me. Ember makes me feel alive, appreciated. His words cut deep, but I refuse to let him see how much he's hurting me. If you're so unhappy, why stay with me? Why not just ask for a divorce? Ashton smirks. And give up the cushy life you provide? The fancy apartment, the expensive toys? I'm not stupid, Vivian. I know a good thing when I have it. Rage boils inside me. So you thought you could have your cake and eat it too? Keep me around to foot the bills while you screw your mistress on the side? It's not like that, he insists, but I can see the lie in his eyes. Get out, I hiss. Get out of my house, my life. I never want to see you again. Ashton shrugs. Fine, but don't think you're getting rid of me that easily. I have just as much right to the restaurant, to everything we've built together, and I'll fight you for it. He storms out, slamming the door behind him. I sink to the floor, hot tears streaming down my face. How could I have been so blind, so stupid? I trusted him, loved him, and all along he was betraying me. Nadia comes over that night, a bottle of wine in hand. I'm so sorry, Viv, she says, hugging me tight. I knew something was off with Ashton, but I never imagined. He's been cheating on me with Ember, I choke out. He wants a divorce, says he's entitled to half of everything, the restaurant, our assets, all of it. Nadia's eyes flash with anger. Like hell he is. We'll make him pay for what he's done to you, Viv. He doesn't deserve a cent. I nod, wiping away my tears. You're right. It's time to stop crying and start fighting. Ashton wants to play dirty? Well, two can play at that game. The next morning, I march into my lawyer's office, the investigator's report clutched in my hand. I want to file for divorce, I tell him, and I want you to find any dirt you can on my husband, dig into his finances, his business dealings. I have a feeling he's hiding something. My lawyer nods. Consider it done. We'll make sure you come out on top, Vivian. He won't know what hit him. As I leave the office, a sense of cold determination settles over me. Ashton thinks he can destroy me, but he's underestimated the woman he married. I built him up from nothing, and now I'll tear him down just as easily. He and Ember want a war? They've got one. And I never lose a fight. They'll both pay for their betrayal, one way or another. I'll make sure of it. The divorce proceedings are ugly, a bitter battle of he said, she said. Ashton paints me as a cold, unloving workaholic, while I expose his infidelity and financial improprieties. My lawyer uncovers evidence of Ashton's embezzlement from the restaurant, funneling money into a secret account to fund his lavish gifts for Ember. Armed with this information, we negotiate a favorable settlement. Ashton walks away with nothing. No stake in the restaurant, no alimony, just the clothes on his back and his precious mistress by his side. But my victory is short-lived. Ashton and Ember launch a smear campaign against me. trashing my reputation to anyone who will listen. They post vicious lies on social media, accusing me of being a ruthless gold digger who never loved Ashton, only his potential for success. Their words sting, but I hold my head high. I know the truth, and so do those closest to me. Nadia stands firmly by my side, a fierce ally in the face of their cruelty. At the restaurant, I waste no time cleaning house. I fire Ashton and Ember on the spot, relishing the shock and outrage on their faces as I have security escort them from the premises. "You can't do this," Ashton sputters. "This is my restaurant, my dream." "Not anymore," I say coldly. "You lost the right to call it yours the moment you betrayed me. Now get out of my sight before I have you both arrested for trespassing." Ember hurls obscenities at me as they're dragged away, but I don't flinch. Let them spew their venom. They're powerless now, nothing more than a footnote in my life. With Ashton and Ember gone, I pour my energy into revamping the restaurant. I hire a talented new head chef, update the menu, and rebrand the entire concept. Ashton's Bistro becomes Vivian's, a chic and modern eatery that quickly gains buzz among the city's foodies. The grand reopening is a smash success, with lines out the door and glowing reviews from critics. As I mingle with the guests, accepting their congratulations and well wishes, I feel a sense of pride and vindication. I built this place, made it thrive, and I did it all without Ashton. But my triumph is tempered by whispers of Ashton and Ember's latest antics. They've been blacklisted from every reputable restaurant in town, reduced to working in seedy dives and fast food joints. Part of me feels a twinge of pity, but I quickly push it aside. They brought this on themselves with their lies and betrayal. Months pass, and Vivian's goes from strength to strength. We expand to a second location, then a third. I become a fixture on the city's culinary scene, sought after for interviews and partnerships. And then one day I spot a familiar face in the crowd at a food festival. Ashton, looking haggard and defeated, Ember clinging to his arm like a lifeline. They catch my eye, and I see the flash of anger and resentment in their gazes. "Well, well," Ember sneers, "if it isn't the great Vivian Sinclair, lording her success over the little people." "You ruined our lives," Ashton spits. "Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted?" I regard them coolly. "You ruined your own lives," I say. "I just stopped letting you ruin mine." They lunge at me then, hurling insults and accusations, but security quickly intervenes. As they're dragged away screaming and cursing my name, I feel a weight lift from my shoulders. I'm free of them, I realize. Free of their toxicity, their lies, their manipulation. I've built a new life for myself, one filled with success and purpose, and they have no power over me anymore. Let them wallow in their misery, their bitterness. I'm done being dragged down by their darkness. I have a bright future ahead of me, and I intend to make the most of every moment. I walk away from the festival with my head held high, ready to embrace whatever challenges and triumphs lie ahead. I am Vivian Sinclair, and I am unbreakable. The success of Vivian's is a balm to my battered soul. As the restaurant thrives, expanding to new locations across the city, I throw myself into my work with renewed passion. It's a welcome distraction from the pain of Ashton's betrayal, a way to channel my anger into something productive. But even as I bask in the glow of my achievements, I can't shake the desire for revenge. I want Ashton and Ember to suffer, to feel the same humiliation and despair they inflicted on me. My opportunity arrives in the form of a high-profile food festival where Vivian's has been invited to showcase our signature dishes. As I'm prepping my team for the event, I overhear a startling conversation between two of my sous chefs. "Did you hear about Ashton Sinclair?" one of them whispers. Apparently, he and that blogger chick have been blacklisted from every decent restaurant in the city. No one will hire them after the stunt they pulled with Vivian. "Serves them right," the other chef scoffs. "I heard they're barely scraping by, working dead-end jobs and living in some dump of an apartment." A thrill of vindication runs through me. So the mighty have fallen. Ashton and Ember, once the darlings of the culinary scene, now reduced scraping the bottom of the barrel. But it's not enough. I want to see their downfall for myself, to revel in their misery. And what better place to do it than at the food festival, where the cream of the crop will be gathered to celebrate the city's finest cuisine. I make some discreet inquiries and discover that Ashton and Ember have indeed hit rock bottom. They're working as lowly prep cooks at a seedy diner, barely making ends meet. The image of them toiling away in a greasy kitchen, their dreams of culinary stardom shattered, fills me with a perverse sense of satisfaction. On the day of the festival, I arrive early to oversee the setup of the Vivian's booth. As I'm arranging our artfully plated creations, I catch a glimpse of a familiar face in the crowd. Ashton, looking haggard and defeated, Ember clinging to his arm like a desperate barnacle. Our eyes meet, and I see the flash of recognition, followed by pure, unadulterated loathing. They make a beeline for me, pushing through the throng of festival-goers with single-minded determination. "Well, well, well," Ember sneers as they approach. "If it isn't the great Vivian Sinclair lording her success over the little people. Come to gloat, have you?" I regard them coolly, taking in their shabby appearance and the bitter lines etched into their faces. "I'm here to showcase my restaurant," I say evenly. "What brings you two to the festival? Surely you're not here to sample the gourmet offerings." Ashton's face twists into an ugly scowl. "You think you're so high and mighty, don't you? Ruining our lives, blacklisting us from the industry. Are you happy now, Vivian? Is this what you wanted?" I feel a flare of anger at his accusation. "You ruined your own lives," I snap. "I didn't force you to cheat, to lie, to betray me. You made your choices, and now you're facing the consequences." Ember lets out a shrill laugh. "Consequences? Is that what you call it? You destroyed us, Vivian. You took everything we had and ground it into dust. And you took everything I had and stomped on it without a second thought," I retort. "My love, my trust, my marriage, you betrayed me in the worst possible way, and for what? A cheap fling and some ego boost?" Ashton's face reddens with rage. "You never appreciated me," he snarls. "Never supported my dreams. Ember understands me in ways you never could." I shake my head in disbelief. "I gave you everything, Ashton. My heart, my money, my unwavering support, and you threw it all away for a piece of ass. Well, I hope she was worth it, because now you have nothing. No restaurant, no reputation, no future, and you have no one to blame but yourselves." With that, I turn on my heel and walk away, leaving them sputtering with impotent fury. Let them stew in their own misery, I think. They've reaped what they sowed, and I wash my hands of them both. As I return to the Vivian's booth, head held high, I feel a sense of closure wash over me. I've confronted my demons and emerged victorious. Ashton and Ember are nothing more than a bitter memory now, a cautionary tale of what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you. I am Vivian Sinclair, restaurateur extraordinaire, and I bow to no one, least of all a pair of backstabbing traitors who thought they could bring me down. I've risen from the ashes of their betrayal, and I will continue to soar. Nothing and no one can stop me now. The food festival marks a turning point in my life. With Ashton and Ember's public humiliation, I feel a sense of closure, a readiness to move on from the pain of their betrayal. I throw myself into my work with renewed vigor, determined to make Vivian's the most acclaimed restaurant in the city. And it pays off. Within months, we're booked solid every night, with a waitlist stretching weeks in advance. Critics rave about our innovative menu and impeccable service, and I become a regular fixture on the culinary scene, sought after for interviews and collaborations. But even as I bask in my success, I can't help but keep tabs on Ashton and Ember. Call it morbid curiosity, but I need to know just how far they've fallen. Through the grapevine, I learned that they've been blacklisted from every reputable restaurant in town. No one wants to be associated with the scandalous couple who betrayed the beloved Vivian Sinclair. They're forced to take whatever scraps they can get, working menial jobs in fast food joints and seedy diners. A part of me feels a twinge of pity for them. After all, I once loved Ashton deeply, and I can't forget the good times we shared. But then I remember the pain they caused me, the callous way they discarded our marriage, and any sympathy I might have felt evaporates like mist in the sun. Let them suffer, I think. Let them feel a fraction of the heartbreak and humiliation they inflicted on me. It's no less than they deserve. As the months pass, I hear whispers of their increasingly desperate situation. They've been evicted from their apartment, unable to make rent on their meager wages. They're living out of Ember's beat-up old car, sneaking into shelters for meals and showers. It's a far cry from the lavish lifestyle they once enjoyed, funded by my hard work and sacrifices. The irony is not lost on me. One evening, as I'm leaving the restaurant after a particularly grueling shift, I spot a familiar figure huddled in the alley behind the building. It's Ashton, looking gaunt and filthy, his once pristine chef's whites stained and tattered. He looks up at me with bloodshot eyes, a mixture of shame and resentment on his haggard face. "Come to gloat?" he rasps, his voice rough from disuse. I shake my head. "I take no pleasure in your suffering, Ashton. Despite what you may think, I never wanted this for you." He lets out a bitter laugh. "Could have fooled me. You took everything from us, Vivian. Our jobs, our reputations, our future. You ruined our lives." I feel a flare of anger at his accusation. "You ruined your own lives," I snap. "I didn't force you to cheat, to lie, to betray me. You made your choices, and now you're facing the consequences." Ashton's face twists into a sneer. "Consequences? Is that what you call it? We're living on the streets, Vivian, begging for scraps like dogs. Is this the revenge you wanted? To see us reduced to nothing?" I take a deep breath, trying to calm the rage simmering in my veins. "I never wanted revenge, Ashton. I wanted justice. I wanted you to feel a fraction of the pain you caused me, to understand the magnitude of your betrayal. But I never wished for this. I never wanted to see you destroyed." He scoffs. "Could have fooled me." I sigh, suddenly feeling very tired. "Think what you want, Ashton. But know this, I've moved on. I've built a new life for myself, one that doesn't include you or Ember. And I'm happy, truly happy, for the first time in years." I turn to walk away, but his voice stops me. "Vivian, wait." I glance back over my shoulder, seeing a flicker of the man I once loved in his haunted eyes. "I'm sorry," he whispers, "for everything. I know it doesn't change anything, but I needed to say it." I nod, a lump forming in my throat. "I appreciate that, Ashton. But you're right, it doesn't change anything. We can't go back to what we were. That life is over." With that, I walk away, leaving him slumped in the alley. As I climb into my car and drive off into the night, I feel a sense of closure wash over me. The anger and pain that have fueled me for so long begin to dissipate, replaced by a newfound sense of peace. I have survived the worst betrayal imaginable, and I have emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient. I am Vivian Sinclair, and I am finally free. With Ashton's apology still ringing in my ears, I throw myself into expanding Vivian's empire. We open new locations across the city, each one more successful than the last. My name becomes synonymous with culinary excellence, and I'm hailed as a visionary in the industry. But my success is about more than just personal achievement. I want to use my platform to make a difference, to empower other women who have faced adversity and betrayal. I start a mentorship program for aspiring female chefs, offering guidance and support as they navigate the cutthroat world of professional kitchens. I also partner with local women's shelters, donating a portion of Vivian's profits to help survivors of domestic abuse rebuild their lives. It's deeply fulfilling work, and it gives me a sense of purpose beyond the daily grind of running a restaurant. I feel like I'm making a real difference in people's lives, using my own pain and struggle as a catalyst for positive change. But even as I bask in the glow of my newfound purpose, I can't help but think of Ashton and Ember. Despite everything they've done, a part of me still feels a twinge of pity for them. I know firsthand how easy it is to get caught up in the allure of success, to let ego and ambition cloud your judgment. And while I can never forgive their betrayal, I can't help but wonder if they truly understood the consequences of their actions. Through the grapevine, I hear that they've hit rock bottom, blacklisted from the industry, drowning in debt, and struggling with addiction. They're a cautionary tale of what happens when you let greed and selfishness consume you. A part of me wants to reach out, to offer some kind of olive branch, but I know it's not my responsibility to save them from themselves. They made their choices, and now they have to live with the fallout. Instead, I focus on my own healing, on building a life that is authentic and fulfilling. I surround myself with people who lift me up, who support my dreams and celebrate my successes. Nadia becomes my rock, my confidant, and my sounding board. She's there for me through every triumph and setback, always ready with a listening ear and a shoulder to cry on. Together, we host lavish charity events at Vivian's, raising money and awareness for causes close to our hearts. I speak openly about my own experiences, hoping to inspire others to find strength in the face of adversity. And slowly but surely, I feel the wounds of Ashton's betrayal begin to heal. The pain and anger that once consumed me fade into the background, replaced by a sense of peace and purpose. I know I'll never forget what he did, but I refuse to let it define me. I am more than the sum of my scars, more than the product of someone else's cruelty. I am Vivian Sinclair, a survivor, a fighter, and a force to be reckoned with. And I will spend the rest of my life using my voice and my platform to lift up others, to create a world where no one has to suffer in silence. As I stand on the balcony of my penthouse apartment, looking out over the twinkling lights of the city, I feel a sense of gratitude wash over me. I have lost much, but I have gained so much more. I have found my purpose, my passion, and my power. And I know that no matter what challenges lie ahead, I have the strength and resilience to overcome them. Let Ashton and Ember wallow in their misery, their regret. I have moved on, focused on building a life that is rich in love, purpose, and meaning. I am Vivian Sinclair, and I am unstoppable.
So there I was, 24-year-old me, smack in the middle of what feels like the biggest family drama of my life. And honestly, it's got me feeling all sorts of stressed out. My family's painting me as the villain here, saying I'm all about me, me, but that's just not how it is. And I'm really hoping to get some outside perspective to help me navigate through this mess. Let's rewind a bit to about 7 years ago. Picture this. I'm living with my dad, my stepmom, and occasionally my stepsister Anna, who's 32, drops by to say hi. I had just wrapped up high school, and I was at this major crossroads, trying to figure out what comes next. College was calling my name. I could feel it. I'd been dreaming of campus life, the books, the new friends, everything. So, I sit down with my dad, lay my cards on the table, and tell him college is where I see myself heading. Dad seemed cool with it. More than cool, actually. He drops this bombshell that he's been stashing away cash from my college fund. All I needed was that golden ticket, a college acceptance letter. Fast forward a bit, and bam, I get the letter. I'm in. I made it into one of the local community colleges, and I'm over the moon. I race home, bursting through the door, ready to share the epic news with my dad. But the scene I walked into was nothing like what I'd pictured. My stepmom's there, and the moment I spill the beans about college, she jumps in with this total mood killer. Turns out, the money that was earmarked for my college dreams? Gone. Spent on something they deemed more urgent. And she's saying this like it's no big deal, suggesting I just hit pause on my dreams and wait another year. I'm standing there, my excitement turning to disbelief, turning to my dad, desperately hoping he's got a different story. But nope, he's just nodding along, looking like he's about to walk the plank. My heart sank. I mean, here I was, ready to take on the world, and suddenly, it's like someone pulled the rug out from under me. I muster every ounce of courage I've got and ask my dad straight up, what could possibly be so urgent that my college fund, my future, had to take the back seat? And that's where things got really complicated. So there I was, having a heart-to-heart with my dad, expecting some kind of reasonable explanation for why my college fund had vanished into thin air. And what does he tell me? They handed over all that cash to Anna, my stepsister, so she could upgrade her living situation. Like, seriously? Now let me paint you a picture of Anna. She's from my stepmom's previous adventure, before she hooked up with my dad. And Anna? She's always been kind of a wild card, to the point where she didn't even finish high school because she was just too out there. Fast forward to the present, and Anna's 25, about to welcome twins into the world, making it a grand total of 4 kids, all with different dads who've basically ghosted her. When I found out they used my college savings for her, I was floored. I couldn't keep it in. I told my dad straight up that what they did was straight up unfair. Their excuse? Well, Anna's expecting again, twins this time, and as a single mom with 3 other kids to boot, they felt like they had to do something to help her out. I'm standing there trying to wrap my head around this logic, asking my dad how in the world they could think this was more important than my future, my dreams of going to college. He basically told me to calm down and just reapply next year. That got me thinking, what if Anna decides to have another kid next year? Am I supposed to put my life on hold again? Dad didn't have anything to say to that, leaving me even more frustrated. So I spent that whole night just letting it all out, crying because I felt so betrayed. They were so set on making Anna's life a bit easier that they didn't think twice about throwing my plans and dreams under the bus. But lying there, feeling sorry for myself, wasn't going to cut it. I knew I had to do something, especially since I nailed my final exams. That's when it hit me. Why not look for colleges that offer scholarships? I was determined not to let this bump in the road stop me. I started searching for any and every scholarship opportunity I could find. I was ready to take my future into my own hands and not let anyone else dictate what I could or couldn't do. So yeah, that's the game plan. I'm going all in, chasing those scholarships and making sure I get to college, come what may. So guess what? I actually got into one of those fancy colleges far away from my hometown, and they even gave me a full ride. Yeah, a complete scholarship covering everything. That was my golden ticket out of there. I packed my bags and left without making a big deal about it. I was so over dealing with folks who thought it was cool to ditch my future for someone who couldn't care less about anyone else's. After I took off, my dad tried to call me a couple of times, but honestly, I was like, nah, you should spend that time with your precious grandkids instead. I was totally fine with just moving on and not looking back. Fast forward 7 years and a lot has happened. I finished college, landed a pretty sweet job in the same state I went to school in, and worked there for 3 years. But get this, just last month, my company decided to send me back to my home state to work at our main office. Talk about a full circle, right? I got everything sorted and moved back last week. Now here's where things get interesting. Just a few days after I got back, my stepmom hits me up, using my uncle's phone because, yup, I had blocked her number years ago. She drops this bombshell on me. Anna left her kids, who are now 6, 9, 10, and 12 years old, and they haven't seen her since she bounced. My stepmom's trying to pull me into their mess, saying they need my help with the kids. I was like, hold up, what? You're kidding, right? She goes on about how my dad's retired now and she's not working, so they're struggling to take care of the kids and want me to take them in. I couldn't believe what I was hearing and shut that down real quick. She tried to guilt trip me, calling me heartless and wicked for saying no, but I clapped back, telling her I'm doing way better than her daughter, who ditched her own kids. I even asked her, would you be asking Anna to take in kids if the roles were reversed and I was the one who left? She didn't have much to say after that. So yeah, that's the drama I'm dealing with right now. After everything that's happened, it's like I've come full circle, but now I'm the one they're trying to drag into their mess. But I've learned a thing or two about standing my ground, especially when it comes to family drama that tries to pull you back into the chaos you worked so hard to leave behind. So here's the deal. I had this convo with my stepmom where I was like, look, if my dad can go ahead and blow my college fund on Anna thinking he's doing the noble thing, that's his choice. But me? I'm not about to play superhero and take in a whole crew of kids that Anna, who hasn't exactly been Mother of the Year, decided she couldn't handle. I was super clear that Anna had already tried to wreck my future once with her drama, and there was no way I was letting her or her mess up my life again. Let's be real. Anna probably took off because she knew having a bunch of kids would make her dating life pretty much non-existent. I straight up told my stepmom to stop calling me and maybe try to track down Anna instead, to maybe knock some common sense into her. Then I was wondering, does this make me the bad person in this story? But then, out of nowhere, my dad gives me a call a few days later. He actually said he was sorry for pretty much ghosting me all those years, not even bothering to check in while I was battling through college on my own. Hearing him say sorry, and I mean really mean it, kind of hit me hard. So I decided to let go of the past and forgive him. Now flipping back to the whole Anna saga, she tried to pull a fast one by bringing this dude home, telling everyone he was ready to put a ring on it. But here's where it gets juicy. The kids come home, super excited to see their mom, and everything just explodes. My stepmom, without thinking, spills the beans to the guy about Anna being a mom. The guy freaks out and hits the road. Now, Anna and her mom are in this epic fallout, with Anna blaming her for her ruined love life. And my stepmom? She's totally clueless about why she's getting all the heat and just wants Anna to take her kids back already. Meanwhile, I'm over here making plans to find a chill spot for my dad to live, far away from this whole soap opera. I figured it's the least I could do for him, considering all the past drama. As for my stepmom and Anna, I'm done. I'm just focusing on making sure my dad gets to enjoy some peace for once. He might not have been perfect, but at the end of the day, he's still my dad. So am I the jerk? Story 2. So here's the thing. My wife and I had been together for a whole decade, and then, out of the blue, she cheats. Picture this. It's just a regular Thursday afternoon. I had come back from work, hopped in the shower, and was just chilling in bed next to my wife, trying to shake off the day's stress. She had a shift coming up soon, so she got up to get ready and headed into our master bedroom. I'm just lying there, scrolling through TikTok, not thinking much of anything, when I get this text from a number I don't recognize. The message is asking if I'm me, using my name and everything. I'm like, yeah, that's me. Then they ask again, making sure they've got my full name right, and I confirm. That's when they drop this bomb on me, saying they're really sorry, but they've got to tell me that my wife's been cheating on me, and they've got text to prove it. This person sends me screenshots of conversations where my wife is talking to someone about how she's got this coworker who can't seem to keep his hands to himself. She's joking around, saying she's created a little monster, and talking about how she'd never go for a coworker, especially one who's married. But then, oops, Turns out she's been having an affair with some random guy and even bragging about it to him. She's in these texts, telling this guy that if they lived closer, she might have taken things further. So, yeah, I was completely crushed. We've been married for 9 years and together for 10. We've got 3 amazing kids and had built this whole life together. When I read those texts, I just lost it. I was a complete emotional wreck, trying to process how everything we had built was just falling apart. So, I decided I couldn't just sit on this. I needed to talk to her about it straight up. I asked her to step outside for a chat and laid it all out. Her first reaction? Total denial. She's like, "You're out of your mind. There's no way I'd ever do something like that." But I was ready. I told her I had the screenshots, the proof, and it was time for her to just be honest. You know, she has this particular look she gets when she's caught in a big fat lie. And right then, she was practically wearing that look like a Halloween mask. From the messages I saw, she fessed up to messing around with one guy physically, and then there was some flirty stuff with another. That's as far as she would go. But in my head, I'm thinking, if she's copping to that, what else is there? What other secrets is she too embarrassed to spill? I've always been super clear with myself, and with her too, that cheating is a deal breaker. I used to say I'd drop her in a heartbeat if it ever happened. But now that I'm actually facing this mess, it's way harder than I ever thought it'd be. She's my wife. I meant every word of those vows I took. If I could just believe she was truly sorry and knew for sure this wouldn't happen again, I'd be willing to forgive. But how can I? The trust is shattered. Believing anything she says now just feels impossible. I've kind of put a pause on making any huge decisions until we give marriage counseling a shot. I'm leaning towards this mostly for the sake of our kids, but if I'm being totally honest with myself, I'm not 100% convinced it's the right move. It just blows my mind, you know? How can someone who swears up and down that they love you turn around and pull something like this? Since everything came out, she's been ticking all the boxes, doing everything I've asked her to. But I'm stuck here wondering if that's ever going to be enough to patch things up. See, the thing is, I'm not one to just toss my relationship into the trash bin without a second thought. Not like it seems she did. I've been super careful about who I spill the beans to, thinking about the off chance I decide to stick things out with her. My family's already not exactly her fan club, and if they got wind of this, well, let's just say it wouldn't be pretty. But part of me, a big part, wishes I could just scream about all this from the highest point I can find, instead of feeling like I've got to keep it all under wraps. I'm all over the place emotionally right now, like a blender set on high without a lid. There are so many feelings happening all at once, and trying to figure out which one to actually listen to is like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. Dropping all this here, I guess, is part vent, part plea for a bit of wisdom or guidance from anyone who's been in these shoes or even just has an outside perspective. I get that nobody else can make this call for me, but man, any sort of help in untangling this huge knot of emotions would be seriously appreciated. Big thanks in advance to anyone who takes a moment to weigh in. Story 3. My sister's got this 7-year-old kiddo who, well, still rocks diapers once in a while. It's not like an all-the-time thing, but he has his moments, you know? And he's got autism, which probably plays into this whole diaper deal. On my end, I've got a little squad of my own with a 9-year-old leading the pack and 2 munchkins trailing behind at 4 and 2. So my sister and her little dude are crashing with us for a bit. Her apartment's kinda in a mess because of a fire that went down a few floors up from hers. And to top it off, they found some gnarly black mold creeping around. And man, is it a scorcher outside these days. Last summer, my hubby decided to go all out and popped up this massive pool in our backyard. It's like we've turned into the neighborhood hotspot with all the kids diving in and out of our place to cool off. Their folks are pretty awesome too, lending a hand with keeping our yard looking nice and sometimes grilling up a storm. My sister and I, well, we've had our moments. Like, she's had some oddball requests for her son's meals or got iffy about me breastfeeding near him. But hey, we sorted all that out. Now here's where it gets a bit sticky. My nephew's been back to wearing diapers lately, and my sister's got this idea that our house should be a no-go zone until he's all about that underwear life again. I wasn't having any of it. I mean, if she's that worried about him feeling embarrassed, she could just keep him chilling upstairs. It's way too hot to keep all these kids cooped up inside away from the pool. They gotta have some fun without melting into puddles. My sister's getting all worked up because her son's feeling left out, especially since he can't splash around with his cousins. But here's the thing. I can't just put one kid's situation over the fun and safety of all the other kids, right? She's throwing around words like I'm not being understanding enough and that I should make special arrangements just for him. But I'm like, hold up, he's not my kid, and it's not like the other kids are going to make a big deal over his diaper situation. She's pretty upset with me, and my husband's kind of thinking maybe we could close off the pool for just family for a day or so. Makes me wonder, am I being unreasonable here? Story 4. My sister, who's 35, and she kind of sees herself as this top-notch housewife. She's got a couple of kids who are still in middle school, and she's all about that stay-at-home mom life, looking after them and her 5 dogs. Her hubby brings home the bacon, so she's totally dedicated to managing the house, whipping up meals, looking after the kids, all that home stuff. Now, the thing my sister is super proud of is her cooking. She's always trying out new recipes and gets a real kick out of cooking for other folks. But here's the kicker. She's not exactly the culinary genius she thinks she is. Plus, her kitchen habits are, let's just say, not exactly up to code. We're talking hair everywhere because she never ties it back, hands that don't see the sink as often as they should, and, oh, the dogs are pretty much part of the kitchen crew. Our family always goes on about how amazing her food is, but honestly, just thinking about how it's made gives me the heebie-jeebies. I've gotten pretty good at dodging dinner invites, usually saying I'm slammed with work or not feeling peckish, which isn't a total lie given my job's pretty exhausting. So this one time she throws a dinner party to celebrate her husband's big job promotion, and it's one of those moments where saying no just isn't an option. Their place has this open plan vibe, so the kitchen and dining area are pretty much one big room, which means I had front row seats to the whole cooking show from my spot at the table. And man, it was a sight. Her hair was doing its thing, loose and all over the place, and she's wearing this massive knit sweater while she cooks. But it gets worse. I caught her doing the old finger-licking trick after, a quick scratch, then cuddling her dachshund right there in the kitchen. And just when I thought I'd seen it all, she plops the dog right onto the counter next to the cutting board to grab something, and the little guy starts going to town on the hamburger meat she left out. I was so grossed out, I spent the whole dinner trying not to look like I was about to lose my appetizer. Obviously, I didn't touch my food and just stuck to making chit-chat. She definitely picked up on it, though, so when my sister noticed I was just pushing my food around and not really eating, she hit me with the big question, why aren't you eating? At first, I tried to dodge it, throwing out excuses like, oh, I'm just not feeling all that hungry, trying to keep things light. But eventually, the truth just kind of bubbled up, and I had to be real with her. I told her, as gently as I could, that the way she cooks is kind of yuck. Like, not to be mean, but it's not exactly clean cooking we're talking about here. I mentioned the whole deal with her letting her hair fly all over the place and dipping her fingers into the food without washing them first. Man, did that hit a nerve? My sister was totally taken aback. She just started crying right there and then, telling me how hard she works on these meals, and here I was, calling them dirty. She even threw out there that maybe I was just jealous because I don't have a family of my own to cook for, seeing as I'm flying solo without kids. That's when I kind of lost my patience, and told her I was done with this conversation, that there was no way I was going to eat food that made me feel uncomfortable, and I just left. Her and her husband didn't let it go, though. They blew up my phone all night, telling me I was way out of line, making a mountain out of a molehill about the food situation, and that I really hurt their feelings. They kept saying the food was fine, no hair, tasted great, but how would I even know since I didn't try it? And yeah, I do feel bad for making her upset, but she asked me straight up why I wasn't eating, and I just gave her the honest answer. Just to clear things up, it was just the 3 of us there, me, my sister, and her husband. No big family dinner or anything. So now I'm sitting here wondering, was I really the bad guy for just speaking my truth? Last story. Am I the jerk for not helping my sister with her sick kids while she took her husband to the ER? My sister, who's 30, and her hubby have this big family with 5 kids. Now me? I'm 22 and totally not into the whole kid scene. Like, hanging out with kids just doesn't do it for me. I pretty much keep my distance from my nieces and nephews. And that's totally by choice. I'm all good with it. But here's the drama. The entire family, all 7 of them, caught the coronavirus, which is rough because it's been hitting them hard for a whole week. So, her husband got super sick, like dangerously dehydrated, and needed to rush to the ER. My sister calls me up, hoping I'd watch their 5 kids while she took him. I was like, no way, and suggested she either call an ambulance or hit up her mother-in-law to help out instead. I mean, those sounded like solid plans to me. She tells me she doesn't want to bug her mother-in-law and that they can't swing the cost of an ambulance. That got me wondering, why is she cool with dumping 5 sick kids on me, but thinks asking her mother-in-law for a lift is too much? She said she was feeling rough too and needed a break. I wasn't having it, so I just hung up and went about my day. Then, out of nowhere, my mom, who's way out across the country, calls me up angry, saying I should have stepped up to watch my sister's kids. But come on, that ask is way out there. I've never even babysat a single kid before, let alone changed a diaper. How am I supposed to handle 5 sick kids, 3 of whom are still in diapers? In the end, the mother-in-law took the husband to the ER, and now my sister's going around telling anyone who'll listen that I'm the worst. But here's the thing. We barely even talk since she had her kids, And she didn't help me out when I needed it, like when I was moving into my college dorm. So I'm sitting here thinking, why should I be expected to jump in and help with such a huge favor when she hasn't been there for the small stuff? Am I really the bad guy for saying no to watching my sister's kids?
I should have known something was wrong when my mother didn't even look at me during my graduation ceremony. She was too busy fussing over my half-sister Sadie's hair, making sure every strand was perfect for the photos she wasn't even supposed to be in. This was my day, at least it was supposed to be. My name is Tessa and I graduated high school yesterday. Today I'm sitting in the campus library, staring at an email that's making my blood run cold. Dear Miss Whitmore, we confirm receipt of your withdrawal from fall admission. I read the words again and again, my hands shaking. I never sent a withdrawal letter to Stanford. This was my dream, the escape plan I'd been working toward for the past 4 years. Something wasn't adding up. There you are. Sadie's voice cut through my thoughts. She was leaning against the doorframe, twirling her perfectly styled hair. Mom's looking everywhere for you. We're about to head to Rosetta's for my early graduation celebration lunch. My graduation was yesterday, I said, my voice flat. Yours isn't for another year. Sadie shrugged, examining her manicured nails. Dad says it's never too early to celebrate success. Besides, I already got accepted to Yale. Early admission. She paused, her lips curving into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Oh wait, weren't you supposed to hear back from Stanford by now? The way she said it, something in her tone made my stomach drop. I glanced back at the email, then at her phone clutched in her hand. Suddenly, the pieces started falling into place. You did this, I whispered, the realization hitting me like a punch to the gut. You hacked my email and withdrew my application. Sadie's expression didn't change, but her eyes glittered. Prove it. Before I could respond, my mother's voice echoed through the library. Girls, what's taking so long? Grant's waiting in the car. I watched as Sadie transformed, her face softening into the perfect daughter mask she wore so well. Coming, Mom. I found her. My mother appeared behind Sadie, looking immaculate as always in her designer dress. Tessa, why are you still in here? Everyone's waiting. And please tell me you're not wearing those ratty jeans to lunch. I looked down at my favorite pair of worn jeans, suddenly feeling shabby and small. I'm not feeling well, I lied. I think I'll skip lunch. Don't be ridiculous, my mother said, but her attention was already back on Sadie, adjusting her daughter's collar. This is a family celebration. For what? The words burst out before I could stop them. My graduation was yesterday, and none of you even stayed for the whole ceremony. Oh, honey, my mother sighed, that familiar look of disappointment crossing her face. We had to leave early for Sadie's Yale interview prep. You know how important that was. Besides, you're just going to beauty school now, right? I froze. I hadn't told anyone about applying to beauty school. It was my backup plan, something I'd only researched in secret. Sadie's smirk told me everything I needed to know. She'd been monitoring my emails for longer than I'd realized. Actually, I said, standing up and gathering my things, I'm not feeling well at all. I think I need to go lie down. Suit yourself, my mother said, already turning away. Come on, Sadie, darling. We don't want to keep your father waiting. I watched them leave, Sadie throwing one last triumphant glance over her shoulder. As their footsteps faded, I pulled out my phone and dialed the one person who had always been in my corner. Grandma Ruth? It's Tessa. I need your help. My voice cracked slightly. Something's happened, and I don't know what to do. Come over, sweetheart, my grandmother's warm voice replied. And bring those college emails with you. We'll figure this out together. As I gathered my things to leave, I caught sight of my reflection in the library window. For the first time in years, I didn't see the shadow of my perfect half-sister or my mother's disappointment. I saw someone who was done being pushed around. Sadie might think she'd won, but she had no idea what she'd just started. Grandma Ruth's kitchen always smelled like vanilla and hope. As I sat at her worn oak table, clutching a mug of tea, I could almost pretend everything was normal. But the Stanford withdrawal email glaring from my phone screen said otherwise. That girl has gone too far this time, Ruth said, her usually gentle voice sharp with anger. She was already dialing her phone. I'm calling Marla. Your aunt needs to know about this. I reached across the table and caught her wrist. Please don't. Not yet. The last thing I needed was another family drama. I need to handle this myself. Ruth set the phone down but fixed me with that knowing look she'd perfected over 70 years. And how exactly do you plan to do that, sweetheart? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Mom's name flashed across the screen, followed by a string of messages. Where are you? Grant is furious you missed lunch. Come home now. I switched the phone off and pushed it away. I can't go back there tonight. Of course you can't, Ruth said, already heading to the spare bedroom. You'll stay here. But tomorrow you need a plan. She was right. I needed more than just a plan. I needed leverage. Sadie had been playing this game longer than me, and she'd gotten sloppy. There had to be evidence of what she'd done. The next morning, I walked into our kitchen to find Grant and Mom having one of their quiet conversations that always seemed to be about me. They fell silent when I entered. Nice of you to finally join us, Grant said, not looking up from his tablet. Your mother tells me you've been making some interesting career choices. I grabbed an apple from the counter, trying to keep my voice steady. I haven't made any choices yet. Beauty school, he scoffed. That's hardly a career. Besides, we've already discussed your role in the family business. No, they'd discussed it. I'd just been told. Actually, I said, I wanted to talk about my Stanford application. The kitchen went quiet. Too quiet. Mom's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. Oh, that reminds me. Sadie breezed in, perfectly timed as always. Dad, remember that investment opportunity one told you about? The one through Chad's father's firm? Grant's face lit up, the way it never did for me. The tech startup? Have they opened up spots for early investors? They have, Sadie smiled, shooting me a quick glance. But we should discuss it privately. You know how these things are. I watched as she led Grant away, effectively shutting down any conversation about Stanford. But not before I caught a glimpse of something on her phone screen. An email draft with a familiar header. Tessa, Mom said, finally acknowledging me. About yesterday. Save it, I cut her off. I need to get ready for work. Work, she blinked. What work? My shift at Mel's Diner starts in an hour. I hadn't planned to tell her, but suddenly I wanted her to know. I've been working there for 3 weeks. Her face crumpled into that familiar look of disappointment. A diner? What will people think? They might think I'm responsible. Independent. I met her eyes. Like Sadie. Mom's expression hardened. Don't start with that jealousy again. Your sister, half-sister, works hard for everything she gets. Maybe if you showed half her initiative. I laughed, and the sound surprised us both. You have no idea what Sadie's capable of, do you? What's that supposed to mean? But I was already heading upstairs. I had a shift to get to, and more importantly, I had a plan forming. Sadie wasn't the only one who could access emails. And I had a feeling that draft I'd glimpsed on her phone would be very interesting to Grant if he knew what his perfect daughter was really planning with Chad's father's firm. As I changed into my diner uniform, I heard Sadie's laughter floating up from Grant's study. She thought she had everyone fooled. But she'd forgotten one thing. I'd been watching her tricks for years. And now it was my turn to play. The thing about working at a diner is you hear everything. People forget you're there, like you're just part of the furniture. That's how I overheard Chad Miller bragging to his friends about the foolproof investment scheme he and Sadie were planning. I was wiping down their table when Chad's words made me freeze. Grant Alden won't know what hit him, Chad laughed, not noticing me. Sadie's got him wrapped around her finger. One signature from Daddy Dearest, and we're set. My hand tightened around the rag. Before I could hear more, Mel called me from the kitchen. Tessa, your grandmother's on the phone. Says it's urgent. Ruth never called me at work. Something was wrong. Sweetheart. Her voice was tight with worry. Sadie's here. She's telling your mother some pretty serious stories about you. My stomach dropped. What kind of stories? She's saying you've been stealing from Grant's office. That you're trying to sabotage her Yale acceptance. Tessa, she has screenshots. Of course she did. Sadie never made a move without backup. I'll be right there, I said, already untying my apron. When I pulled up to our house, Aunt Marla's car was in the driveway. Great. Sadie had called in the whole cavalry. Inside, they were waiting in the living room like some kind of intervention. Mom was crying, actually crying, while Sadie sat beside her, the perfect picture of concern. Grant stood by the fireplace, his face stormy. Aunt Marla looked uncertain, glancing between everyone. Show her, Sadie said softly, handing her phone to Grant. He thrust it at me. On the screen was an email draft, one I'd supposedly written, detailing plans to hack into his company's accounts. It was dated the same day as my Stanford withdrawal. I didn't write that, I said, but my voice sounded weak even to me. It's from your email account, Grant said. Just like the Stanford withdrawal. Which I also didn't write. I looked at Mom, pleading. You have to believe me. Sadie's setting me up. Oh, here we go again, Sadie sighed. Always blaming me for your mistakes. Mistakes? I laughed, the sound harsh and unfamiliar. Like how you and Chad are planning to scam Grant out of his investment money? The room went silent. Sadie's face flickered for just a moment before she recovered. What is she talking about? Grant demanded. She's lying, Sadie said quickly. She's just jealous because Chad asked me to prom instead of her. I heard him at the diner, I pressed on. Ask him about the foolproof investment scheme you two cooked up. Enough. Mom stood up, mascara streaking her cheeks. Tessa, how dare you make up such horrible lies about your sister? Half-sister, I corrected automatically. See. Sadie's eyes welled with perfect tears. She's always trying to divide our family. First the stealing, now these accusations. Aunt Marla finally spoke up. Maybe we should all take a breath. No, Grant cut her off. I want to know what's really going on. Tessa, if you can't prove these accusations, check his investment portfolio, I said. Look for any new tech startups linked to Richard Miller's firm. Grant's face changed. He pulled out his phone, fingers moving rapidly. Sadie stood up suddenly. Daddy, you don't have to. Sit down, he snapped, and for the first time, I saw real fear in Sadie's eyes. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You'll regret this. I looked up to find Sadie staring at me, her mask finally cracking. Behind the perfect makeup and practiced tears, I saw something ugly and desperate. I have to go, I said, backing toward the door. My shift isn't over. Tessa, wait. Aunt Marla called, but I was already gone. In my car, my hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel. I'd finally pushed back, but this wasn't over. Sadie wouldn't let it be. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Ruth. Come stay with me tonight. We need to talk about your beauty school application. I think I can help. I started the car, watching Sadie's silhouette in the living room window. She might have the family fooled, but she'd forgotten something important about me. I had nothing left to lose. 3 weeks after the confrontation, I found myself standing in Ruth's bathroom, surrounded by mannequin heads with half-finished hairstyles. My hands were cramping from hours of practice, but I couldn't stop. Not when I was finally getting somewhere. You're getting better, Ruth said from the doorway, watching me work. That French braid actually looks French this time. Before I could respond, my phone lit up with Grant's name. I'd been dodging his calls since the investment scheme revelation, but this time something made me answer. Where are the files? His voice was ice cold. What files? Don't play dumb, Tessa. The backup drives from my home office are missing. Sadie says she saw you in there last night. I gripped the edge of the sink. I haven't been home in 3 weeks. You know that. Then explain why your fingerprints are all over my desk. My old house key. The one I'd forgotten to return. Sadie must have. Check your security cameras, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Conveniently disabled last night. Along with Sadie's phone tracking app. Of course they were. I could almost admire how thorough she was being. Grant, think about it. Why would I? Because you're desperate, he cut in. Working at that diner, living with your grandmother. You're not exactly making good life choices. The mannequin head toppled as I spun around, nearly knocking over my carefully organized styling tools. At least I'm not the one being scammed by my own daughter. We've investigated Chad's investment proposal. Everything checks out. You're just trying to cause trouble, like always. I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. Have you actually met Richard Miller? Chad's father? Or just seen the paperwork Sadie showed you? The silence on the other end told me everything. You have until tomorrow to return the files, he said finally. Or I'm calling the police. The line went dead. I looked up to find Ruth watching me, her face tight with worry. I heard, she said quietly. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Sadie. Meet me at Riverside Park. 1 hour. Come alone or the drives go public. I have to go, I said, already grabbing my jacket. Ruth caught my arm. Tessa, wait. There's something you should know about the trust fund your father left you. What trust fund? The one Lila's been managing since he died. You're supposed to get access when you turn 21. The world tilted sideways. Mom told me there wasn't any money left. Ruth's expression hardened. There's plenty left. Nearly $500,000. I've been trying to find the right time to tell you. My phone buzzed again. Sadie, tick-tock. I have to deal with this first, I said, heading for the door. But we're not done talking about the trust fund. Be careful, Ruth called after me. That girl fights dirty. She had no idea. At the park, Sadie was waiting by the river, looking perfectly put together as always. The missing drives sat on the bench beside her. You know, she said conversationally, I almost admire how hard you're trying. Beauty school, the diner job. It's pathetically ambitious. Where are the real drives, Sadie? She smiled. These are the real drives. But the files? Those were uploaded days ago. Insurance, you know? Against what? Against you ruining everything. Her smile vanished. Did you really think you could turn Dad against me? I'm his real daughter. You're stealing from him. I'm securing my future. Unlike you, I have plans bigger than cutting hair in some strip mall. Using Chad's fake investment scheme? Sadie's laugh was sharp. Chad, please. He's just the face of the operation. This was my idea. All of it, including your Stanford rejection. I stepped closer. Why? What did I ever do to you? You existed, she said simply. Always there, with your sad eyes and your dead dad's trust fund. Making Mom feel guilty. Making everything complicated. The truth hit me like a physical blow. You know about the trust fund? Of course I do. Mom's been investing it in Dad's company for years. My company soon. She stood, brushing off her designer jeans. So here's the deal, walk away. From the house, the family, all of it. Or these files show everyone exactly what kind of person you really are. I stared at my half-sister, finally seeing her clearly. You really think you've won, don't you? Her smile was almost pitying. Haven't I? But as I watched her walk away, I thought about Ruth's revelation about the trust fund, about everything I'd learned working at the diner. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about winning. It's about surviving long enough to tell the truth. The box arrived on Ruth's doorstep the morning after my confrontation with Sadie. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a complete professional hairstyling kit. Scissors that caught the light like diamonds. Brushes with perfect bristles. Everything I'd been saving for but couldn't yet afford. Open it, Ruth urged, holding out an envelope. Read the note first. My hands shook as I unfolded the paper. For when you're ready to build your own future. Love, Aunt Marla. Before I could process this, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. We need to talk about the trust fund. Come home. Now. Ruth touched my shoulder. You don't have to go. But I did. Because for once, I had leverage. The house looked different somehow, smaller maybe. Mom was waiting in the kitchen. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide the shadows under her eyes. Grant sat beside her, his laptop open to what looked like banking records. Where's Sadie? I asked. At Yale, Mom said quickly. Touring the campus. Really? Because I just saw her car at Chad Miller's house. Grant's head snapped up. What? Never mind that. Mom cut in. We need to discuss your father's trust fund. You mean the one you've been funneling into Grant's company? The words came out sharp, precise. The one you told me didn't exist? Mom's face went white. Who told you? Does it matter? I pulled out my phone, showing them the banking records Ruth had helped me find. What matters is it's illegal. And I have proof. Grant stood up so fast his chair toppled. Are these the files you stole? I didn't steal anything. But Sadie did. I met his eyes. Check your security footage again. The real footage, not whatever she showed you. Check the timestamps. This is ridiculous, Mom said, but her voice wavered. Sadie would never. Like she'd never hack my Stanford application? Or set up a fake investment scheme with Chad. Grant's face darkened. What investment scheme? Before I could answer, the front door slammed. Sadie stormed in, her Yale sweater wrinkled, mascara smeared. What did you do? She demanded, waving her phone. Chad just called. His father's backing out of the deal. The room went silent. Grant turned to her slowly. What deal, Sadie? She froze, realizing her mistake. For a moment, I saw panic flash across her face. Then her mask slipped back into place. Tessa's lying, she said smoothly. She's just jealous because... Stop. Grant's voice was quiet, dangerous. Show me your phone. Daddy. Now. As Sadie handed over her phone, I saw something I'd never seen before. Fear in her eyes. I should go, I said, picking up my bag. But first, I turned to Mom. I want my trust fund transferred to my name. All of it. Or I go to the police with proof of embezzlement. You wouldn't, Mom whispered. Try me. I walked out, leaving chaos behind me. Through the window, I could hear Grant's voice rising, Sadie's protests, Mom's sobs. Back at Ruth's, I found her in the garden, tending her roses. She looked up as I approached. How did it go? I sat beside her, feeling the weight of years lifting from my shoulders. I think I just burned every bridge I had left. Sometimes, Ruth said, pruning a dead branch, bridges need to burn so you can build better ones. My phone buzzed again. A series of texts from Sadie. You're dead to this family. Hope you're happy now. You have no idea what you've started. I switched off my phone and picked up the hairstyling kit Aunt Marla had sent. The scissors felt right in my hand, like they'd been waiting for me. "Want to be my first official client?" I asked Ruth. She smiled, touching her silver hair. "I thought you'd never ask." As I began setting up my supplies, I caught my reflection in the window. I looked different, stronger maybe, or just more certain. Sadie was right about one thing. She had no idea what she'd started. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone else's future. It's about finally building your own. The first rock crashed through Ruth's front window at midnight. The second one had a note attached. "Leave town or worse." I knew who sent them without reading the signature. Ruth insisted on calling the police, but they just took notes and left, saying there wasn't enough evidence. Of course there wasn't. Sadie never left evidence. The next morning, I found Grant's prized Aston Martin parked in Ruth's driveway, its pristine silver paint now decorated with long, deliberate scratches. My house key was stuck in the driver's door. I didn't do this, I told the officers who showed up 20 minutes later. But Grant and Mom were already there, Sadie crying perfectly timed tears beside them. "Security footage shows someone with your build," Grant said, his voice cold. "Using your key. That's impossible. I was inside all night with." "With me," Ruth interrupted, stepping forward. "Tessa never left the house." "The cameras don't lie," Sadie sniffled. Just like she didn't lie about destroying my Yale acceptance. I spun toward her. "What?" "The admission office called this morning," Mom said, not meeting my eyes. "Someone sent them evidence that Sadie cheated on her SATs. They've rescinded her acceptance." The pieces clicked together too late. I should have known Sadie wouldn't go down without taking everyone with her. "Press charges," Sadie urged Grant, wiping away tears that looked almost real. "She's obviously unstable." Grant pulled out his phone. "I'm calling my lawyer." "Wait," Ruth said. "If you press charges, I'll have to tell them about the trust fund. About where that money really went." The threat hung in the air like smoke. "Fine," Grant finally said. "But I want her gone. Today. If I see her near our house or my car again, I'm calling the police." "Our house?" I laughed, the sound brittle. "I grew up there. That was my father's." "Your father is dead," Mom cut in. "And you're no longer welcome in our home." The words hit harder than any rock through a window. "Lila," Ruth gasped, but Mom was already turning away, leading Sadie to their car. Grant stayed behind. "One more thing," he said, handing me an envelope. "Cease and desist letter from my lawyers. Stay away from my family, my business, and especially my daughter." "She's not your daughter," I shot back. "She's a con artist who's bleeding you dry. The only person causing problems here is you." He glanced at Ruth's broken window. "Clean up your act, Tessa, before someone gets hurt." After they left, Ruth found me in the garden, staring at nothing. "We'll fight this," she said. "I have savings. We can get a lawyer." "Don't." My voice sounded strange, distant. "Sadie won't stop until she's destroyed everything. Then we'll start over. Together." But even as she said it, I saw Ruth press a hand to her chest, her breathing labored. The stress was getting to her. Her heart couldn't take much more. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Karma's a bitch. So am I." S. Below it was a link to a social media post going viral in our community. Pictures of Grant's car, security footage stills of someone who looked just like me, and a story about the unstable daughter who couldn't handle her sister's success. The comments were already rolling in. Always knew there was something off about her. Poor Sadie, having to deal with such a toxic sister. Lock her up before she really hurt someone. I deleted the app, but the damage was done. My reputation, my future, my family, Sadie had taken everything. "I have to leave," I said quietly. "Tessa, no. Look at your window, Ruth. Look at what she did to Grant's car. Next time it could be worse. It could be you." I'm not afraid of her. But I am. The admission hurt more than Mom's rejection. I'm afraid of what she'll do next. Of what I might do to stop her. Ruth took my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "Then we'll leave together. Start fresh somewhere else." I looked at my grandmother, my last real family, and made the hardest decision of my life. "No," I said. "I have to do this alone. Because sometimes protecting the people you love means letting them go. And sometimes revenge means walking away. At least, that's what I kept telling myself as I packed my bags, leaving everything I loved behind. 6 months after I left town, Aunt Marla's call brought me back. Ruth had died in her sleep, peaceful and quick, they said. I missed the funeral. Sadie's restraining order made sure of that. But today, standing in Ruth's lawyer's office, none of that mattered. "She left you everything," the lawyer said, sliding the papers across his desk. The house, her savings, and this. He handed me an envelope, Ruth's familiar handwriting spelling out my name. Before I could open it, the door burst open. Sadie stormed in, followed by Mom and Grant. "This is ridiculous," Sadie snapped. "She's mentally unstable. There's no way Grandma Ruth meant to. She wasn't your grandmother," I said quietly, finding strength in the weight of Ruth's letter in my hands. "Miss Alden," the lawyer interrupted, "this meeting is private." "Private?" Grant stepped forward. "After what she did to my car. To my company." I looked up sharply. "What happened to your company?" The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken accusations. Sadie's face had gone pale, her designer clothes suddenly looking cheaper, worn. "The investment scheme," I realized. "It wasn't just Chad's father, was it? How many fake investors did you create, Sadie?" "Shut up," she hissed. "The SEC is investigating," Grant said, his voice hollow. "We've lost everything. Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. We had to sell the house." I opened Ruth's letter, needing her words more than ever. As I read, my hands began to shake. "All these years," I whispered. She was gathering evidence. "About the trust fund, about Sadie's schemes, everything." I looked at my half-sister. "She knew what you were doing before any of us." Sadie lunged for the letter, but I was faster. "You can't prove anything." "Actually," the lawyer cleared his throat, "Mrs. Whitmore left quite extensive documentation, including emails between Miss Alden and various fake investment accounts." "You're lying," Sadie's voice cracked. "Daddy, tell them." "Enough!" Grant's shout made us all jump. "Haven't you done enough damage?" Sadie's mask finally cracked. "I did it for us. For our family." "No," I said, standing up. "You did it for yourself. Just like you sabotaged my Stanford application. Just like you framed me for vandalizing Grant's car. You have no idea what it's like," she spat. "Being perfect all the time. Never making mistakes. While you got to be the tragic victim everyone felt sorry for." "Sorry for?" I laughed. "You took everything from me. And now I have nothing." Tears streaked her makeup. "So congratulations. You won." I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and felt something unexpected. Pity. "This wasn't about winning," I said, gathering Ruth's papers. "It was about surviving you." "What are you going to do?" Mom asked, speaking for the first time. "Press charges." I thought about Ruth, about revenge, about the cost of hatred. "No," I said finally. "I'm going to open a salon. In Ruth's house." I turned to Sadie. "And you're going to stay away from me, or these documents go to the SEC." "You can't." "I can. And I will." I headed for the door, then paused. "You know what the difference is between us, Sadie? I never needed to destroy you to prove my worth." Outside, the spring air felt clean new. Ruth's letter was warm in my pocket, filled with love and one final gift. The truth that would keep Sadie out of my life forever. My phone buzzed, a text from the beauty school I'd applied to. Application accepted. I smiled, thinking of Ruth's styling tools waiting at home. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone else's world. It's about building your own, stronger than before. Behind me, I could hear Sadie's sobs, Mom's attempts at comfort, Grant's heavy silence. But for the first time, their drama felt distant, unimportant. I had a salon to open, a life to build, and finally, the power to make it happen on my own terms. 1 year after Ruth's death, I stood in front of my salon mirror, watching the morning light stream through newly installed windows. The sign outside read Ruth's Grace, a tribute to the woman who made it all possible. The bell chimed. Through the reflection, I saw Mom standing in the doorway, looking smaller, somehow less certain. "We're not open yet," I said, continuing to arrange my styling tools. "I know." She clutched her purse like a shield. "I saw the article about you in the local paper. Young entrepreneur transforms historic home into thriving business." I turned, really looking at her for the first time in months. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by department store basics. Sadie's downfall had affected them all. "What do you want, Mom?" "Sadie's in therapy," she said abruptly. "Grant's filed for divorce. Everything's." She trailed off. "Falling apart?" She nodded, tears threatening. "I found this in our old house, while we were moving out." She held out a worn envelope. "It's from your father." My hands shook as I took it. Inside was a faded photograph, me at 5, sitting in his salon chair, playing with his styling tools. On the back, he'd written, "My little artist following in my footsteps." "I never told you," Mom said softly, "but the salon was his dream too. Before the cancer." She stopped, composing herself. "I was wrong, Tessa. About everything." The bell chimed again. Aunt Marla walked in, carrying a box of old styling magazines. She froze when she saw Mom. "I should go," Mom said quickly. "Stay." The word surprised us both. "I could use help organizing the magazine collection. If you want." As they sorted through the boxes, I opened the final letter from Ruth, the one I'd found hidden in her styling kit. "Dearest Tessa, by now you've probably figured out why I kept such detailed records of Sadie's schemes. But that wasn't my real gift to you. Your father left you more than just a trust fund. He left you his talent, his dream. I saw it every time you picked up those scissors. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting free." A text lit up my phone. "Sadie, for the first time since the lawyer's office." "I'm sorry," it read. "Nothing more." I deleted it without responding. Some bridges stay burned. The morning sun caught the salon's new sign, casting warm shadows across the floor. Mom and Marla's quiet conversation mixed with the rustle of magazines, the gentle hum of hair dryers warming up. "First clients in 15 minutes, I announced, straightening my work apron. "Either help set up or head out." Mom stood uncertainly, then reached for a broom. Marla smiled, continuing to organize magazines. I looked at my reflection one last time. Not a victim, not a revenge seeker, just a woman building something new from the ashes of what was lost. Ruth was right. The best revenge wasn't exposing Sadie's schemes or watching my family's perfect facade crumble. It wasn't even succeeding despite their doubts. The best revenge was discovering I never needed revenge at all. I just needed to find my own path. The bell chimed again, my first client of the day. I picked up my scissors, feeling their familiar weight. In the mirror, I caught a glimpse of something in Mom's expression, pride maybe or regret. Perhaps both. But I wasn't doing this for her, or for Sadie, or even for Ruth anymore. I was doing it for that little girl in the photograph, playing with her father's styling tools, dreaming of creating something beautiful. "Welcome to Ruth's Grace," I said to my client, my voice strong and sure. "What are we creating today?" Behind me, the past lingered in shadows, Sadie's schemes, Mom's neglect, all the pain and betrayal. But ahead lay something brighter. A future built not on revenge or resentment, but on the simple joy of following my own dreams. Sometimes that's the greatest victory of all.